All right. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Pad Paramahansa Bhadarajacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhadarajacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 15th day of April 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 2, entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, text 59, page 125. Okay, let's just read it. Vishaya nivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavajam rasopyasya padam drishtva nivartate Vishaya nivartante niraharasya dehinaha Rasavarjam asopyasya Param drishtva nivartate Vishaya nivartante Niraharasya dehinaha Rasavarjam asopyasya Param drishtva nivartate Vishaya nivartante Niraharasya dehinaha Rasavarjam asopyasya Param drishtva nivartate Vishaya nivartante Niraharasya dehinaha Rasavarjam asopyasya Param drishtva nivartate. Anyone else on this side of the divide? Okay, ladies. Vishaya nivartante Niraharasya dehinaha Rasavarjam asopyasya Drishtva nivartate Vishaya nivartante Niraharasya dehinaha Rasavarjam rasopyasya Param drishtva nivartate. Bhakta Chad.
Vishya vinivartante
Vishaya nivartante
Niraharasya dehinaha
Niraharasya dehinaha
Rasavarjam rasopyasya
Rasavarjam asopyasya
Param drisva nivartate.
Padam drishtva nivartate. Anyone else out there in YouTube land? They're out there. Zoom. You have to be on Zoom, I know. Okay, here's the synonyms. Vishaya, objects for sense enjoyment. Vinivartante, are practiced to be refrained from. Niraharasya, by negative restrictions. Dehinaha, for the embodied living being. Rasavarjam, giving up the taste. Rasaha, sense of enjoyment. Api, although there is. Asya, his padam, far superior things. Drishtva, by experiencing. Nivartate, he ceases from. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Purport. Unless one is transcendently situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Ashtanga Yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, etc., is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. But one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandjana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this verse always struck me as very important. I remember when I first read it, I memorized it. And I'm not going to try to chant it from memory now because I might make a mistake. Now, one thing, the first word in this verse is Vishaya, meaning object for sense enjoyment. Now, isn't it interesting that the word for poison, who knows what the word for poison is? Visha. Vishaya. He's got Vishaya. So the things that induce us to enjoy them, the sense gratification, are actually poison in the sense that they focus our mind and give us an experience of pleasure, however fleeting. And what's the result of that is that that's planted in the mind. And the next time the opportunity arises, you want to do it again and again and again. I remember, I like to share these experiences from when I was a child. I became totally addicted to little chocolate kisses. Do they still have those? Little pieces, they still have them, right? And it didn't just manifest in the kisses. Then I would also want a chocolate cream, I forget what they call it. It was like a soda, and want to speak of chocolate cake, chocolate cookies. So I was kind of addicted to chocolate. But my mother was always, careful. She didn't let me get completely bound up in that addiction. And now we're not allowed to have chocolate, so we don't have chocolate. But I am addicted to Kanchan Bala's little burfis that she makes. What is it? Tamarind? The substitute for chocolate. There's a substitute for chocolate. Carob. I mean, she is really empowered to make these. So, but I'm conscious, this is, such a wonderful offering to Krishna. And, I don't eat the whole thing at one time. It takes me a few days. But still, it's interesting that in Krishna consciousness, there is that pleasure in tasting wonderful prasadam. But you're meant to be reminded of how Krishna enjoyed it because it was prepared with so much devotion and care like that, And Krishna warns not to eat too much and don't to eat too little. Usually that's pretty easy, but not eating too much is harder. So here this verse is now what does the verse say? Is that the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment. Now when I first read this in the purport many years ago, I was thinking of, not that, I never, thank God, I never got addicted to drugs. And I used to drink a little bit of beer with my friends on the weekend, But I never got addicted. And I had the great good fortune that I drink a little too much, I'd throw up. That would like break the mood entirely, So that was good fortune. But I've known people who have. I remember there was a devotee. He was the son of a very nice devotee in Alatra, where I met. I'm not going to name any names. But he had a son who went to the Gurukul in Mayapur. And I don't know if he got a chance to drink in there, but he became an alcoholic along the way, I mean, he wasn't, fall down drunk like that, but he sent him here to, so he could get my association and everything, because we were friends. And he was a nice boy and everything, but he would go to AA in one of the big churches up the street here, up Cass. There's these two, usually, one was founded in 1948, and the other one was nearby. So they have buildings, outbuildings, and one of them they have a session of AA. And what happened was that he found the AA and he went up there. He would go up there. He would attend the programs here and everything. He was a devotee, but he had this problem. And he met someone up there who was interested in Hare Krishna. I forget his name now, Daniel or something like that. And he had been a cocaine addict. And it had affected him. He liked to hear my lectures, but imagine someone who's listening, for like 5 minutes, and then he had to jump up to go outside and walk around. He was so restless, And then he would come back and then he would go out again. Poor guy. So he invited me to come up to speak to him. He liked to, my lectures and everything. So I did. I went up there and gave a little talk, and because I was listening to them, and they have a lot of the similar kinds of things in order to get free of the addiction. There was a book that they gave me, I think I still have it on my shelf. You have to try to recognize a higher power. You know, it's non-sectarian, it's not, you know, so the higher power is God, you know, Jesus, whatever. And also the power of association with others who are trying to do the same thing, you know. And so there you would get up, you know, and because I couldn't say, you know, yes, my name is Dravida Dasa and I'm an alcoholic. And then you have this little medallion they give you, you know, and I've been free for 45 years. You know, usually it's like 6 months and you get a little medallion. So I really couldn't say that. But I did talk about some of the similar things. And this verse is exactly pertinent to that. Is that you can want to give up some sense object, you see, but the taste remains. The taste remains. And so you have to get over that period. That's the hard part. You're hankering for it, you see. Now in Krishna consciousness, if you really take up intense devotional service along with the chanting and the association and the taste soon dissipates because you're getting the higher taste. That's what this is all about, the higher taste. We have this book, The Higher Taste, right? Because a lot of the higher taste is also in cooking. The prasadam. Now, the temple that I joined at in Brooklyn was famous for its numerous, I mean numerous means like maybe a half a dozen, super cooks. Yeah. What happened to the mic? Oh, okay. Hare Krishna. And Apurva was there, who's famous even to today. This is 50 years later. He's, you know, he wrote a book, a cookbook and everything. But the Sunday feasts were absolutely out of this world, you know. And I was a young guy. I was like 25, you know, and we weren't, you know, following the regs. We weren't having any, you know, sex and all this stuff, and we certainly weren't drinking or anything. When that Sunday feast came around, it was I'll confess to it now. After the feast, I had this thing with ladus. They make these ladus that just added. So I would go around all the plates that the guests had left, and many of them had left some ladus, and I would eat all those ladus, you know. Then I would lie down in my bunk, you know, and I could hardly move, and said, never again, never again. The next Sunday would come around. I would come. So, and Prabhupada, he knew that. He knew that from day one in the storefront, you know, the 22nd Avenue. He would cook the Sunday feast. You can imagine, you know. That's why they soon ran out of room. They had to move up the street. Maybe you don't know, there was a second one on 2nd Avenue in 60-something. It was a little bigger. They moved until they moved to Brooklyn. So anyway, that's Krishna consciousness. Dancing, chanting, you're getting this higher taste of the holy name, and then when you're tired, take prasadam, you know. But as Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, you really you know, can experience Krishna consciousness when you don't eat too much also, you know, because that can really affect your consciousness, obviously. But still, that's there. That outlet is there. If it's prasadam, okay, you know, I ate a lot, but it was prasadam. It was Krishna. So Krishna gives us that. But here's the idea. Is very simple here. Param drishtva. Now the word drishtva literally means to see, or in this case, to directly experience. You're experiencing param. Param here is short for this far superior things, which means Krishna. Your Krishna consciousness. So then notice that this word rasa, now rasa is a very important word for us, but here it doesn't mean the taste of serving Krishna, you know, the mellow, you know, which you can drink from here to eternity. There's no limit. This is the whole idea, is that our senses are limited, obviously. And so you can only enjoy sense gratification for a limited amount of time. And if you try to do much, then there's a bad reaction and you get just the opposite of sense. It's painful, you know, you get sick or whatever. But there's never any limit to how much you can be Krishna conscious. And you find the example of course, Lord Chaitanya and his followers, and especially the 6 Goswamis. And they gave up, you know, they were living literally as austerely as you possibly could, especially Raghunath Das Goswami. He was the emblem of renunciation. But what is very, very interesting as an example, because here's especially those three, Rupa, Sanatan, and Raghunath Das, they were either very wealthy or in line to be very wealthy. Raghunath Das was the only son of a landowners who today would be multimillionaires, literally. And he did. He got married. They married him to a very beautiful and chaste lady, and he was living with. But he just wanted to go and join Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri. And he couldn't do it directly, so he went to see Nityananda. He came, and they had this Panihati festival. And he had access to some money. He was able to sponsor the whole thing. So many pots of perfectly cooked rice and yogurt, and so many Brahmins they invited, So that was part of the mercy he got. And Nityananda said, you will soon be able to go to Lord Chaitanya. So visualize this. Here's this only son of this super wealthy landowner, and his uncle lived with them. He was also very, very wealthy. And he had all material facilities, but he was fixated on somehow getting to Lord Chaitanya in Puri. He was completely... So they would actually literally have soldiers who were guarding him, guarding where he lived so that he wouldn't run away. His mother was there. We got to... So I said, okay, we do it. So one night, it was the middle of the night, and he had a spiritual master. I see Yadunandana Acharya, I think, And so the spiritual master was asking him to do some deity worship. So he says, okay, I'll do the deity worship. And then after that, he lied to his spiritual master. He told him he was going into the river to pass, to bathe and whatever. But instead of that, he snuck away in the middle of the night, you see. Then for like a week or more, he was walking in the forest, wasn't eating, simply going toward. It's a bit of a walk from Bengal to Orissa, right? But he walked all the way there. And finally, he came and surrendered to Lord Chaitanya in Puri. And his parents said, okay, he's there now, so we'll send him some maintenance every month, I think it was, or a week. So they would send him a whole bunch of money, and he would spend it on holding feasts for all the sannyasis in Jagannath Puri, you see. But then after some time, Lord Chaitanya wasn't getting the invitations. What happened when he asked Supreme Damodar, his aide, what's going on with Raghunath? He said, well, he thought this is not proper. I'm trying to be a sannyasi here, and I'm accepting all this money from my father, so you forget it. He sent him back, So then Lord Chaitanya, well, how was he eating then? Okay, well, he's standing on the stairs of the Jagannath temple, and he sees they give out so much prasadam there all day, right? So the Brahmins take it home, and so he would stand and beg from the Brahmins. They would give him a little something this way. So Lord Chaitanya, oh, that's very good, very good. And then after a little while, he didn't see Raghunath Das even on the stairs, and he asked him, where is he? Well, how's he eating? So Supreme said, well, he thought that he's just like a prostitute, He gave me before, I'll look for him, forget him, like that. He didn't like that anymore. So how's he eating? Well, they offer like 56 offerings a day in Puri, so there's all this extra prasadam, it can't get all distributed. So sometimes it's a few days, the rice, so they try to feed it to the cows, they throw it over the fence. And then the cows eat a certain amount of it, but some of it they don't even want. So he's taking that rice, going into the lake or river, and he's rinsing it off, and that's what he's eating. So Lord Chaitanya went to his place and said, Raghunath, you're keeping this great Mahaprasad for me. Where is it, So Raghunath, it's not for you. So he found it and he started eating it. He said, it's not for you, my Lord. Why? It's Mahaprasadam. He was to encourage him, he said. But then when he went to Vrindavan, he became even more austere. He would hardly eat. Like every other day, he would take a little buttermilk or something. He was thin as thin. But somehow he lived into his 70s. And when he went there, after Lord Chaitanya disappeared, he merged into a deity. I won't go into that. But he wasn't there, and so he was just heartbroken. So he went to Vrindavan intending to jump off Govardhan Hill and commit suicide. But when he came there, all the devotees said, oh, no, you can't commit suicide. You have to tell us all this wonderful Leela that you saw personally, Lord Chaitanya performed in Puri. So every day, 3 hours a day on Radhakund, he would hold court and he would, tell the details of Lord Chaitanya's Leela, which Krishna Kaviraj was hearing and noting down, and then he included much of it in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Raghunath Das, he wrote this verse. I'll share this with you. This is just one of many. Actually, I'll share two verses. One, I don't have a poem, but it's very famous. He wrote a poem called Vilap Kusumanjali, an offering of flowers, which in the form of my personal longings for its special service to the Lord. This is. So near the beginning, he has this prayer to Radharani, which I offer every day when we greet the deities. Chintamani prayers are going on, and I'm chanting these slokas. So it goes like this: Devi dukkha kulasagaro dare, duyamanam apidurgatam janam, tang kripa pabadanauka yadvatam prapaya sapatapankajaliyam. So he says, "Oh Devi, oh Goddess Radharani, dukkha kulasagaro dare." Dukkha kula sagara means an ocean of miseries, different varieties of miseries. Devi dukkha kula sagara duhyamanam api durgatam janam. This unfortunate soul is drowning in this ocean of varieties of miseries in this world, you see, because I'm separated from you, So he asks Radha, he's appealing to Radha, durgatam janam, tang kripa. Please place him on the very powerful boat of your mercy, and then take him to the infallible refuge of your lotus feet. You see, this is the kind of prayer. And the rest of the Kusumanjali goes in that vein. So now this is a verse about the holy name, which we can somewhat relate to. You know it, you've heard it a million times, but you have some new people. So Radheti nama navasundara siddhu mugdam. Krishneti nama madhurabhudagara dugdham. Savakshanam sudabhiraga himena ramyam kritvata daiva pibame rasane chudarte. An excellent fresh nectar drink with endless subtle tastes, such as the name of Radha, by whom all three worlds are graced. Condensed milk that is wonderfully delicious, thick and sweet, such as the name of Krishna, in whom all attractions meet. Now mix these drinks, O thirsty tongue, and add the cooling, fragrant spice of love, a prize the wise will try to buy at any price. And then at every moment drink this beverage most fine, and make my heart supremely blissful, peaceful, and divine. Now you can see, he's always living on that higher taste. There's no question, even just eating prasadam practically he gave up, what to speak of. So that's what it means, the rasa. When I was actually experiencing the bhakti rasa at every moment, there's no question. It doesn't even come into your mind. The sense gratification is just not even, even your mind. But if you don't have that, then you're almost forced to go in some direction. You may be able to move up the modes a little bit, give up the degraded mode of ignorance and passion, and come to the mode of goodness, but it's still material, and it still brings you back again for another session of birth and death. So directly experiencing the Padam, the Supreme, then the taste is counted. And that's the great value. Otherwise, we Kali Yugites really don't have a chance. We're not going to start with the Stanga Yoga, Yamana, Niyama, Asana, and the breathing, Pratyahara, withdrawing the senses. It's just not going to happen. There's no, very, very rare. But chanting Hare Krishna is feasible for us. That's why Lord Chaitanya said, yes. And what's that famous verse we can all chant together? Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatiranyata. If you want to achieve the supreme goal of life in this age when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way that can ever be found but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, let my head ever run to your lotus feet bow. And that last part is Trina Napi Suni Chena. That's it. So and that verse, Lord Chaitanya quoted when he was speaking to Prakashananda Saraswati. Because it's funny. Prakashananda, he's a serious Mayavadi. He had thousands of disciples. And they're always studying Vedanta Sutra. It's meant for high-class Brahmins to understand Vedanta Sutra. And Lord Chaitanya, he took initiation from a Mayavadi sannyasi because that's all that was available. There were no, bhakti sannyasis. They would just take Babaji and then go to Vrindavan. You wouldn't see him anymore. But the sannyasis for preaching, and Lord Chaitanya wanted to preach, so he took from it. Yeah. And so he, sannyas means Mayavad, and here he was dancing in the streets and chanting, what are you doing? So he's criticizing Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya's devotees are hearing that, and they're very much pained. And so they begged him to please go and speak to them and turn them around, So he agreed. Otherwise, he wasn't associated with the Mayavadis at all. So he goes there to the meeting place, and he's got 1,000 disciples. I don't know. And so there was one place where you come and you wash your feet, you know. And that's the place you don't sit usually because it's kind of dirty, you know. But Lord Chaitanya sat down there. And they could see, and what he was doing, he was manifesting the effulgence, the Brahman effulgence, because he can do that, you know. And the Mayavadis are very impressed, you know. Om Namo Narayanaya. They actually, it was, you know, usually they call each other Narayanaya, but here they're actually calling Narayan Narayan. So they, oh, you know, Prabhu, Maharaj, please come sit with us, you know. So right away he was, you know, very strategic. And then they asked him, well, why aren't you, you know, coming and discussing Vedanta with us? You know, this is what they do, just dancing and chanting. This is not. So he said, well, my spiritual master, Ishvara Puri, told me that you're not qualified to study Vedanta Sutra. He told them this, but it didn't really happen. What really happened with Ishvara Puri, knowing that this was Nimai Pandit, that is, he asked him to edit his book. He had written a book. And Nimai said, oh no, I can't touch a book. That'd be a great offense, you know. But anyway, so that's what happened. But what he told Prakashananda, he said, oh, my spiritual master told me I'm not qualified to study Vedanta Sutra. So he just quoted this verse, the one we just did, Hare Nama, Hare Nama. So do you just chant Hare Krishna? He told me to just chant Hare Krishna. And so I've been chanting and I've been getting results, you know. I've been very happy with that, you know. So finally they asked him to explain Vedanta to them, and he explained it in the way that leads to bhakti. In other words, the ultimate Vedanta Sutra is that God is a person. And in fact, you have this sutra in there, Anandamayo Vyasat, means that, you know, God, the absolute truth, is full of ananda, you know. Anyway, you have to understand it. And the actual right commentary on Vedanta Sutra, who knows what the real commentary is? We know that, right? No? Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why Lord Chaitanya didn't write one. Otherwise, he would have written one. Because all Ramanujan, you know, they all wrote their commentaries on Vedanta Sutra. And then the Gaudiyas, they got into a little trouble in Jaipur. Jaipur, you know, because the Mahan said, you don't have no commentary on Vedanta Sutra, you're not a real sampradaya. So because of that, they said, okay, well, we'll write one. So they thought they'd ask Vishwanath Chakravarti, who was then the leading, at that point in time, was the leading scholar in the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. But he was too old. He felt he was too old, so he gave it to his son, not son, his disciple, leading disciple, Baladev Vidyabhushan. Now, who knows what Vidyabhushana means? Yeah. The ornament, literally the ornament of Vidya. It's not something you're born with, it's a title that's given to you. So he was very learned. In fact, this book that we're reading every day is dedicated to him. If you look at the beginning, you'll see, yes. Probably because he used his commentary. Many of these purports are based on Baladev's commentary. So Baladev, he went there to Jaipur, and but he didn't feel he could just start writing it, you know. He had to get the blessing of Govinda, who was there. Govinda, Rupa Goswami's Govinda, he had been moved there because the Patans had come, you know. And he's still there. So he would pray, and then I think the garland fell down or something. He got the blessing. But he felt so much that it was, Govinda had given him, that he was writing it. So we call it Govinda Bhashya. Govinda Bhashya. He was writing it through him, you know. So we do have a commentary. Anyway, I'm kind of getting a little far afield. But this verse is for us, and you can feel it working. If you really get serious about chanting and hearing and practicing, you'll find that your material desires are diminished. That it's not so difficult. Whereas if you're just trying to hold, you know, grit your teeth and say, no, I'm not going to drink anymore. No, I'm not going to do that. You know, it's very difficult. Okay, any questions, comments? Let's go on. Yatato yapi konteya purushasya vipashchitaha indriyani pamatini hadanti pasabang manaha. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind of even a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Purport: there are many learned sages, philosophers, and transcendentalists who try to conquer the senses. But in spite of their endeavors, even the greatest of them sometimes fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to the agitated mind. Even Vishwamitra, a great sage and perfect yogi, was misled by Menaka into sex enjoyment, although the yogi was endeavoring for sense control with severe types of penance and yoga practice. And, of course, there are so many similar instances in the history of the world. Therefore, it is very difficult to control the mind and senses without being fully Krishna conscious. Without engaging the mind in Krishna, one cannot cease such material engagements. A practical example is given by Sri Yamunacharya, a great saint and devotee, who says, and this verse is quoted twice in the Gita, it's quoted in another purport too. So it's not so easy to chant, so I'll do it myself. Yadavade mamacheta Krishna padarabinde navanavarasadhaman yudyatam rantumasid tadavade batanadi sangame smaryamane bhavati mukhavikara sushtu nishtivanancha. Since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and I have been enjoying an ever-new transcendental humor, rasa, mellow, whenever I think of sex life with a woman, my face at once turns from it, and I spit at the thought. Krishna. Krishna consciousness is such a transcendentally nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. It is as if a hungry man had satisfied his hunger by a sufficient quantity, a large quantity, of nutritious eatables. Maharaj Ambarish also conquered a great yogi, Durvasa Muni, simply because his mind was engaged in Krishna consciousness. Savaimana Krishna Badada Vindayo Bhajangsi Vaikunda Gunanavartade. Bhajangsi Vaikunda Gunanavartade. So this is a famous verse by Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya grew up, he was a wonderful student, very intelligent, and Vaishnav. And this was before he was Acharya. And he lived in a kingdom, and the king had a court pundit who was very famous in debate, and so the king was willing to have anyone try to defeat him in debate, and if he did, he would give him a reward. So Yamunacharya came there. He was a young man, maybe 15 or so. He'd been in the ashram and everything, and he was known as his brilliant mind in debating, So he walked in there, and it's almost they ridiculed, they laughed, he wanted to challenge the pundit. And so the king said, okay, obviously, you can't beat him. So if you can defeat the pundit, my pundit, I'll give you half the kingdom. That's what, so you can imagine. And this was a big thing back then, and right? That was the entertainment, the debates. So I'm sorry, I don't know the details, but he asked the pundit 3 questions, which he couldn't answer, and then Yamunacharya answered them. I'm going to learn them so that I can tell this story. But he defeated the pundit, and he got the kingdom. So now he's like a young man, 16, whatever, and he has this kingdom. So he became a king. And he kind of put his bhakti beside for a while. So after some time, I don't know how long it was. Huh? Well, yeah, I'm going to get to that. But so he was a king for some time, And then maybe it was a few years or something. And one of his old friends from the ashram visited him. It's, oh, Babu, I mean, all the courtiers were saying, wow, this is special. So after, pleasantries, he invited Yamunacharya to take a walk. He has these beautiful gardens and everything. Let's take a walk, Sure, we'll live the old days, So they started walking, and this friend of his, he started reminding him of all these nectar shlokas that they used to know back in the ashram. And Yamunacharya started chanting these nectar shlokas, and before long, they just kept walking. He walked right out of the kingdom, gave it up. Renounced and became Yamunacharya. Yes, who was the spiritual master of Ramanujacharya, who was the head of the whole sampradaya. So this is in his book. It doesn't say where it's from. I forget. I don't think this is part of the Stotra Ratna, but he's telling what his mood is now, because he had but the Nari Sangame Smaryamani, when I remember the Nari Sangame, because he has a whole harem and everything, you don't have to go into detail. So when he remembers that, Bhavati Mukha Bhikaro, my mouth twists into distaste. I spit. Probably so wonderfully, charmingly says, I spite upon it. He doesn't say spit. He does, because it's foreign language. Krishna. This verse appears again. So this is actually, what Krishna is describing here, especially the previous verse. The Vishayava Nivartante. He got the higher taste, totally. He reacquired the higher taste, and he's revealing his mind after all that. It's wonderful. Okay, going on. Tani sarvani sangyamya yukta asita matpadaha vashehi yasyendriyani tasya pragya pratishtita. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. This is the pragya pratishtita. Purport: that the highest conception of yoga perfection is Krishna consciousness is clearly explained in this verse. And unless one is Krishna conscious, it is not at all possible to control the senses. As cited above, the great sage Durvasa Muni picked a quarrel with Maharaj Ambarish. And Durvasa Muni unnecessarily became angry out of pride and therefore could not check his senses. On the other hand, the king, although not as powerful a yogi as the sage, but a devotee of the Lord, silently tolerated all the sage's injustices and thereby emerged victorious. The king was able to control his senses because of lifelong qualifications, as mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam 9:4-18-20. I'll say you see. Savai Manak Krishna Padara Bindayor Bachangsi Vaikunda Gunana Varnane Karo Hare Mandira Marjanarishu Shutim Chakara Chita Satkatore Mukunda Lingalaya Darshane Drishao Tadbritya Gatra Sparshinga Sangamam Granam Chatatpara Soroda Saurabhe Srimat Tulasya Vasanang Tararpite Paro Hare Cheta Padanu Sarpane Shiro Rishikesha Padabi Vandane Kamam Chadase Natu Kama Kamyaya Yatottama Shloka Janashaya Ratihi. King Ambarish fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, engaged his words in describing the abode of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the pastimes of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, his body in touching the body of the devotee, his nostrils in smelling the fragrance of the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaves offered to him, his legs in traveling to the holy place where his temple is situated, his head in offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in fulfilling the desires of the Lord. And all these qualifications made him fit to become a Matpada devotee of the Lord. The word Matpada is most significant in this connection. How one can become Matpada is described in the life of Maharaj Ambarish. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, a great scholar and acharya in the line of the Matpada, remarks, Mad Bhakti Prabhavena Sarvendriya Vijaya Purvika Svatma Drishti Sulabheti Bhavaham. This is part of his commentary I was mentioning before. Quote, the senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to Krishna. Close quote. Also, the example of fire is sometimes given. Quote, as a blazing fire burns everything within a room, Lord Vishnu, situated in the heart of the yogi, burns up all kinds of impurities. Close quote. The Yoga Sutra also prescribes meditation on Vishnu and not meditation on the void. The so-called yogis who meditate on something which is not the Vishnu form simply waste their time in a vain search after some phantasmagoria. We have to be Krishna conscious, devoted to the personality of Godhead. This is the aim of the real yoga. So, this is a theme throughout our literature. There's a famous verse in the 10th canto where the demigods have come. Krishna is about to take birth from Devaki. And all the demigods come down and they're kind of hidden, but they're offering prayers to Krishna in the womb. And the most famous one, Prabhupada would always quote, this is contra the Maya bodies, or those who are trying to merge into some kind of void, formless thing, you know. So it says, ye and ye, so there's praying to Krishna, ye and ye ravindaksha vimukta maninas, tvayasta bhavad abhishuddha buddhaya, aruha kritrena padang padang tata patantya do anadrita yushmadangraya. So the first thing is, they're speaking to Krishna and say, there are others besides the devotees. They've been glorifying the devotees. Ye and ye ravindaksha, O lotus-eyed Lord, vimukta maninas, who think that they're liberated. They think that they're liberated. But they're averse to serving you, and therefore their intelligence is not purified. You see? So then he gives the example of what happens to them. And you can hear, you know, Sanskrit is such a wonderful language. It's full of onomatopeias. You know what an onomatopoeia is? That which sounds, that which means like what it sounds. It's all over in English. Splash, boom is a word, right? You look it up in here. So there's all kinds of it. So this is onomatopoeia. So the word kritrena means very difficult austerities. You can understand it. You know, it's not no. It's it's also Sanskrit. It's kritrena. You know. So it's aruha kritrena param padam. So param padam is the Supreme Brahman. It's Brahma Jyoti. It's impersonal. You know. So they get there, they rise up to that by severe austerities, denying themselves, you know. Oh, it's hot out? Okay, let's go build a few fires in the desert and I'll sit in the middle and meditate. Oh, it's cold? Okay, let's go bathe in the Ganges. Yeah. That kind of thing. Extreme austerities, which we're not into. They may happen automatically, but we don't seek them. So, Aru Kuchena Padam Padam, a few, not all, a few through these severe austerities, restraining the senses, you know. They can rise up to the Parampadam, the Brahman effulgence. But Patantyado, they fall down again. Patantyado anadvita yushmadangriya, because they're averse to serving your lotus feet. In other words, they're not getting that higher taste. The whole idea of merging into Brahman, or the Buddhist thing of merging into the void, is to get free of that horrible birth, old age, disease, and death. To get free of samsara, you know. But that's not a positive thing. How long can you just be happy that you're free? I mean, it's good to be healthy, right? But if all you did all day was just, boy, I'm healthy. What's the use? You know, let's go, let's play, you know, let's go walk out there, you know, do something, right? So that's what it is with the Maya bodies and the Brahma bodies. Emerge into the, and I got to give this analogy, it's just to prove it. You know, the sensory deprivation chamber, have you ever heard of that? Where you can lie down in there. And then you have salt water, so you float, and it's perfect temperature, and you can just, oh. But then after a while, I say, what time is it? I got to go pay the rent. You know? you have to leave. You can't stay there forever, right? It's a relief. It's such a... So just the negative is not going to inspire you. It's a good impetus to get serious, to get free of birth, old age, as Krishna says, janma mrityu jana vadi dukkha dosha nadasha. But it's not sufficient. What really inspires the devotees is Krishna, you know, is his beauty, his pastimes. It talks about him, the kirtan, the holy name itself. That's what keeps you moving forward in Krishna consciousness. And that's where you can really get liberation. Even before you leave this body, you can be liberated. Iha yasya haridase karma namana sagara nikarashapyavastasu jivan muktasa uchyate. Verses are flowing a little better than the other night. So iha, now the word iha means here, but iha means activities. So one whose activities are all in the realm of service to the Lord. Dasa, specifically karma namana sagara. All your active senses, your mind, and your words, everything is connected to Krishna. Nikalasha, all means all. Nikalasha pyavastasu jivan mukta sa uchite. Such a soul is to be known as a mukta, someone who's liberated, even while in this body. Liberation doesn't have to wait till you leave the body. That's great about it. You could be liberated even here. Because muktir, the definition given in second canto, mukti hitpa anyata rupam swarupena vyavastiti. It means giving up your identification with all these other bodies. Like we've had many bodies, all of us. As you grow up, you realize, what happened to your 8-year-old body, Eddie? Where is it? I don't see it. It's gone. But we can remember something, from those days, right? So we've had many bodies. So giving all of these other bodies up and being situated in your Swarup, your eternal form, Swarup Siddhi. That means you're aware of your spiritual form and your relation to Krishna, and you try to remember it by what you hear and read and so forth. You're living even in that body, even in this external body. So that's real liberation. So that's very pertinent to this pastime, to this verse, because he's quoting Tani Sarvani, one who restrains his senses, keeping them full and fixes his conscience upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. So that element of fixing it on Krishna is important. You can't fix it just on Brahman or some mandala on the wall or whatever, No, it has to be on Krishna. Then you can get the steadiness of mind and the detachment. All right, let's do one more. Now this will be, we'll continue this tomorrow. Some of you won't be here. But 62 and 63 are very important. They describe how we get degraded, how the soul can get degraded. Dhyayato vishayan pungsa sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodho bijayate. All right, I'm going to read the next one too. They go together. Krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti bhrangshat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. Okay, I'm going to read the two translations together, then I think I'll just read this one purport. We'll resume tomorrow. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. Purport to 62. One who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to material desires while contemplating the object of the senses. The senses require real engagements, and if they are not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. In the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense objects. And the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is to become Krishna conscious. Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, but when Parvati agitated him for sense pleasure, he agreed to the proposal, and as a result, Kartikeya was born. When Haridas Thakur was a young devotee of the Lord, he wasn't allured. Allured means that he was tempted. He wasn't even allured. So what happened was that Maya Devi attempted to allure him in a similar way. But Haridas easily passed the test because of his unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. And as illustrated in the above-mentioned verse of Sri Yamunacharya, a sincere devotee of the Lord shuns all material sense enjoyment due to his higher taste for spiritual enjoyment in the association of the Lord. That is the secret of success. One who is not, therefore, in Krishna consciousness, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses by artificial repression, is sure ultimately to fail, for the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desires. So, we have just a minute or two. So, these little poems that I sometimes give you, they're really just drops in the ocean of the poetry of the Acharyas. I mean, I was so fortunate when back in the late 70s, I lived in LA. I was working at the press, and there's a press building there on the corner, those who've seen LA. And another resident there was named Kushakrata Das. Now, Kushakrata was an amazing devotee. He was kind of a avadut type, He was a little eccentric, but he was brilliant. He was brilliant. He spent some time actually here before before I knew him in the early 70s. And he was a book distributor, and they said, well, they would send him out, and he would go out to this plain sweatshirt, and he would just hold the book out. He really wouldn't talk to them, I don't know how big he did it, but he did have that career for some time. Eventually, the leader of the LA temple, he invited Kushakrata to come to give a Bhagavad Gita course, and teach, because he knew the whole Bhagavad Gita and everything. He was very brilliant. But when he gave the classes, he would speak to the devotees as if they were like, in kindergarten or first grade, maybe something like that. It didn't kind of work out that way, So what happened is he settled into the Sanskrit department. We had a whole department, Sanskrit Bengali department, to work on Prabhupada's books, to check everything. So he joined that, and he taught himself Sanskrit quickly, Then eventually, Prabhupada's books were finished. In 77, Prabhupada left his body. He completed up to chapter 13 of the 10th canto. So after some time, the other Sanskritists got restless. We're not doing much here. So some of them became astrologers. They learned astrology because you could make money with that. Anyway, so he was left alone there after some time. So what to do? Now, once a year, I was even working on the book then, the Vyasa Puja book. They used to list all the names of the devotees in the temples. And we had to start to get pretty big temples, 100 devotees, Now, we had those Sanskrit names. Now, they had to have the right diacritics and everything. So that was his main job, maybe a couple of months a year. What about the rest of the time? So he decided, well, I should start translating some of the classics. So he thought he would translate the Vedas, the 4 Vedas. So he sent away to one of the main publishers in India, Motilal Banarsi Das, they're famous. And of course, everything was, okay, we'll ship you the books. It was taking weeks and weeks and weeks for the books to come. So he got a little restless. So there was another book that all the Sanskrit boys had, and it was all just the text, no commentary, just Devanagari, which is very concentrated. So he had the 6 Sandarbhas in there, and you had the writings of Rupa and Sanatan. So he started translating that. And he would share with me, because I was famous even then as a shloka slinger, I was getting into the verses in the CC, So anyway, I was reassigned to go work with the BI in Atlanta, so I was going to leave. And he was just finishing the Stava Mala. And he would come out with a verse, say, hey, look at this, oh, this is a great verse, And so keep going, Krishna. And he would photocopy the thing. So I left. He practically finished it on the day I was leaving, and I ended up with the whole Stava Mala in a little case, that I had bound it up and everything. And I went to Atlanta with that. And then there wasn't that much to me to do in Atlanta. Uh-oh, you're about to blow their conch. Now what? A little early. Okay. So anyway, I started, they loaned me a tambur, and I started, learning how to chant the verses. And then I made my first recording, and they're available. I can give you write to me at Dravida 108, and I'll give you a link where you can get on there, the VIHE, which is the Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education. I realized this went on, they have all my recordings on there, you can download them and everything. So you just write to me, Dravida 108, Gmail. All right, glories to Srila Prabhupada, Hari Hari Bol.